Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to Mostly Accurate, the podcast where the tea is hot, the facts are real, and tonight the emotional damage is guaranteed. Before we begin, consider this your official trigger warning, your seatbelt check, and the moment you decide if today is the light podcast while folding laundry day, because this is not that episode, you guys. Today, we are talking about two stories that prove one terrifying truth. Sometimes the danger isn't strangers, sometimes it's family, and sometimes it's been hiding in plain sight for decades. So, we're starting out with a case out of Kentucky. That sounds impossible until DNA says, actually, no, it's possible. A missing child, 40 years gone, a stolen identity, and a reunion that hits like an emotional whiplash. And then we're just going to go full on nuclear because the second half of this episode, we are diving into the Rebecca Park case right out of Michigan, a timeline so brutal, so depraved, and so deeply unsettling that I need you to listen with care. This story involves extreme violence, pregnancy related harm, and betrayal at the level that should not exist at all on this universe. So, if you need to pause, skip, or I don't know, just protect your peace, do that. I will still be here. But if you're staying with me, grab your tea. Take a breath because cold cases aren't always cold and monsters don't always look like monsters. So, yeah, let's get into this. All right, guys. Today's first story takes us to Kentucky, where a 40-year-old missing child case suddenly solved itself. Like it woke up one morning, cracked its back, and said, you know what? I'm done being unsolved. So let's talk about this. Let's go back to 80s. What a good time. That is the decade I come from. This was a time for big hair, questionable fashion, and apparently mothers who thought kidnapping their own children was a quirky personality trait. Spoiler, not so much. So enter 3-year-old Michelle Marie Newton, who vanished from Louisville after leaving with her mother, Deborah Newton. And by like left, air quotes, I mean Deborah packed up, walked off, and didn't look back. No forwarding address, no Facebook check ins, no cute photos, nothing. Just like poof, bye. So for decades, Michelle's dad and family were searching, hoping, praying while Deborah was out living her best incognito life. And Michelle, so she was being raised under a totally different new name. Like she was in the witness protection, but without the witness part. So fast forward 4 decades, multiple presidents, the invention of the internet, TikTok, the fallout of Blockbuster, all the things that just, happened for 4 decades. And suddenly Crime Stoppers got a tip in Florida that comes in like, hey, I think I know this woman and I don't think that's her real life story. So investigators pull photos, they do some like DNA magic, and then like boom, they realize Deborah Newton has been hiding in plain sight this whole time. Like, ma'am, like, what are you doing? Meanwhile, Michelle, now who is 40, minding her own business, starts digging into her family history and she discovers, like, oh, I'm not who I thought I was. Fun. Just like imagine taking that DNA ancestry test and just finding out you have a whole other life and family members. Imagine going to build a family tree and finding like a whole crime documentary is at foot. Like crazy, right? So she contacts authorities, the pieces fall together, and the next thing you know, Michelle is reunited with her biological father after 40 freaking years, like bananas. Basically, it's like a whole lifetime later. Like the emotional whiplash, insane, right? Like the relief, unimaginable. It's just crazy to me. And then Deborah, the mom, while Miss Ma'am was arrested in Florida. I don't know why it's always Florida. Why are we always just popping up these Florida stories, guys? I didn't plan this. I just saw it pop up and it happened to be a Florida case. Anyway, she's arrested in Florida. She's charged with felony custodial interference, which fun fact has no statute of limitations. you're just screwed at that point, meaning that time may heal wounds, but definitely not heal, ma'am, you stole like a whole child. So she appeared in court in Kentucky, got released on bond, and now she's preparing for the next chapter of her life. So, season one, episode one, consequences. The case is like wild. Right. So this case just gives us like those wild reminders that, cold cases aren't always cold. Sometimes they're just hiding in plain sight. Or in Florida, we also need to remember that DNA does not lie. Those ancestry kits come in handy from time to time, and that family reunions hit different when you're 4 decades overdue. So, congratulations, to a family that got to be reunited. And Deborah, that just sucks for you. You're dumb. Do better. So, we have a happy ending in this story. I am just glad that we're running with our happy ending because it's about to get really dark, you guys. All right, so sip your tea because that was just the opener. I wanted something light, but buckle up because the rest of this episode is going to be like a major ride. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're diving into a timeline so horrifying, so bizarre, and so downright unhinged that it will make you think that it was a screenplay, but probably would have been rejected because it's so unrealistic. This is the case of Rebecca Park, a story with enough cruelty and twisted incompetence to make your jaw hit the floor and your blood pressure go up just a little bit. If you have little ones around and if you are sensitive to violence, pregnancy related harm, or family based crimes, please pause me now. I love you very much, but I need to emotionally tuck you into a different location or direction today because what I'm about to cover is one of the darkest, most disturbing, and most absolutely rage inducing cases to come out of Michigan in years. So, for now, those of you who are still here, buckle up. Before we dive into this timeline, here is some background that you are going to need. If you have not heard this, it has made national news, but again, Midwest, we kind of live in a bubble here. So I don't know. I don't know where you're listening from, but I'm about to get you informed. So, this is the case of 22-year-old Rebecca Park out of Cadillac, Michigan, a young mom who was 38 weeks pregnant, like due literally any day, excited to welcome a new baby into the world. She had a fiance, a family who adored her, and a life that was actively building at this point. Rebecca also had a complicated relationship with her biological mother, Courtney Bartholomew, a woman who, according to multiple interviews and court documents, had a history of unstable behavior, lies, and emotional turbulence. So think red flags wrapped in caution tape, wrapped in another red flag. Courtney sucks. So, the biggest red flag though, Courtney had been telling people that she was pregnant, very pregnant, already gave birth pregnant, except spoiler, she was not pregnant at all. Not even a little. Like, not even like a gas bubble on a Tuesday morning pregnant. This fake pregnancy storyline becomes the match that lights the fuse into everything that follows, basically. So on November 3rd, Rebecca goes to visit her mother. It should have been a normal visit. It wasn't. What allegedly happened next is so gruesome, so depraved, so far beyond the limits of human empathy that prosecutors are calling it one of the most brutal crimes they've literally ever seen. Probably also like that I've ever heard of. So if you're still here, still listening, still emotionally hydrated, let's walk through this timeline together because there's a lot to unpack here. But I am warning you again, the cruelty in this case is absolutely nuclear, and my commentary probably will be too. So let's get into this. Let's break this down, guys. Here is where the first red flags should have gone up, but apparently some people are too busy living in Fantasyland. All right. Courtney Bartholomew, Rebecca's biological mother, starts telling literally everyone who will listen to her that she is pregnant. Nope. No ultrasound photos, no doctor's appointments, just vibes and grand declarations, like an Instagram influencer posting maternity pics without a baby bump. But get this, Courtney was texting people saying she had already given birth, which is absolutely baffling. If you're going to lie, at least pick a timeline that makes sense. Like, she looked less pregnant and more like she was trying to smuggle a grapefruit under her shirt. But keep telling yourself that, boo boo. So people around her were really confused, as they should be. And some of them were like, Courtney, you good? But others just made excuses for her. And spoiler, those people will also need therapy later. So we will go into the main event already, which was the giant red flag. November 3rd, Rebecca Park, 22 years old, 38 weeks pregnant, and that's late term, goes to visit her biological mother, Courtney. I remember being 38 weeks pregnant, and yeah, it was not a fun time. I'm not driving around places. I barely made it to work and back. That's not a fun time, but I guess I was older. So if you're 22, yeah, maybe 38 weeks pregnant hits you differently. But anyway, she goes to visit Courtney, and this isn't just like any visit. According to the charges, this was the bait in the trap, so vile it rewrites the definition of betrayal. So Rebecca likely had no idea that she was walking into a horror scene at this point. She probably thought she was seeing her mom, maybe talking about like a birth plan, maybe grabbing snacks. I don't really know. Again, 38 weeks pregnant, you're kind of just ready to pop any second at this point. So instead of a pleasant time, prosecutors say that Courtney and her husband, Bradley Bartholomew, then prepped something way more sinister than anybody could really even imagine. So let's break this down, what allegedly happened, step by step, based on what was said in the affidavit that came out, because this unfolds like some kind of depraved, psychotic, totally illegal birthing class from hell. So, the abduction. Cops allege that Rebecca drives to Courtney's place. The door closes. Somewhere in that time, she is forced into a car, and then shortly after that transferred into another car because, why make one bad decision when you can make two? And this is not just Rebecca wandering off. This is not a domestic argument that goes sideways. This is like a straight up abduction, plain, simple, and criminal. It's like a drive-through horror experience, except with no fun and no refund. So court documents paint a scene so grotesque you'll scream at the speakers. According to the affidavit and medical findings, Rebecca was stabbed. Yep, stabbed. She was held down, and Bradley, Courtney's husband, allegedly held a knife to her throat like some kind of bargain basement slasher villain. And Courtney, well, prosecutors say she didn't reach for a Dunkin' coffee. No, she allegedly pulls out scalpels like real surgical blades. And are you sitting down? Dental floss. Yes, because apparently the Breakfast Club of Delusion carries dental floss like a Swiss Army tool in a forest. So what was she expecting? Dental floss and scalpels to deliver a happy outcome. Didn't happen that way. Oh, no, 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 it did not. They were conducting a makeshift, unlicensed, un-OBGYN approved procedure in a forest, like they were performing some kind of twisted Pinterest DIY project. And here's the kicker. Prosecutors say that Rebecca may have been conscious during the parts of this. So let that settle for a second. The baby. So what happened? They lured Rebecca into the woods, held her down, stabbed her, and removed her baby. That is difficult to say. That is messed up. This whole situation is like some kind of crackhead's fever dream. What the actual F is this situation? So the baby, after all of this hell that Rebecca goes through, the baby never took a breath. Just that's it. And once again, the response from these two adults that did this horrific crime to Rebecca, nothing. Nothing. Not 911, no shock, no grief, nothing. According to the reports, they allegedly brought the baby's body back to their home, tried some kind of form of CPR, which, let's be real, at this point is only semi-normal part of the story because they waited until they got home to give the baby CPR instead of, when they performed their own surgery and removed the baby from Rebecca while she was still alive in the woods. And then this part is, I don't know, it just makes my stomach churn. Since they were unable to revive the baby, they wrapped the baby's body in a garbage bag. And then from there, they put that bag into a lunchbox. Yes, a lunchbox that you bring to like work or school, and then tossed it in the trash. This is just disgusting. This is absolutely disgusting. This is horrific. There's a special place in hell for people like this. I really hope that the rest of their days on this earth are not good. I hope they get what they deserve. So after removing the baby, prosecutors say that Bradley slits Rebecca's throat. And you know what makes my blood really boil? Courtney allegedly tells investigators that she didn't think Rebecca was dying fast enough, so Bradley stepped in with more knife work. At this point, I refuse to call them people. They are evil demons animated by bad decisions and chronic self-delusion. Somebody call, I don't even know who, because humanity needs a major refund on these two people, if you would call them that even. So Rebecca's body is allegedly left in the woods at this point. Meanwhile, the baby's body is thrown away like garbage. And that absolutely breaks my heart completely. Like, such an effed up thing to say. And I understand that grief and trauma can look differently for everybody, but if you think that the appropriate disposal method of a baby's body is a trash can, then you have a problem. And that problem is probably, the complete lack of a soul. I don't care what you believe, where you're from, or how stressed you are. Or how stressed you think you are, that is not normal behavior. That is malicious and straight up evil energy. So, November 4th, the following day, Rebecca doesn't come home. Her fiance reports her missing. Cops start questioning, friends and family start searching, missing posters go up. Meanwhile, out there is two alleged murderers just acting like nothing happened. And I swear to God, if evil had a hobby, these two would make it a full-time job. So police realize that Tweedledum and Tweedledumbass leave like this huge trail of digital evidence because we live in 2025, and thank God for cell towers, and police start peeling back like the breadcrumb trail. They find phone locations put in Courtney and Bradley where investigators think everything went down. They uncover deleted messages that they tried to hide because nothing says perfect crime like deleted text messages that investigators immediately uncover. Search histories and timestamps that just like don't match their story. And then phone records showing movement patterns that look like somebody trying to hide evidence, but forgetting that phones literally broadcast your every single move like a geofenced reality show. But listen, if you're going to commit crimes, please do not bring your smartphone. That's like committing arson with a GoPro strapped to your face. But again, like I said, these two are not very bright people. They are like the poster of just trash. So fast forward, now we're at November 14th. Volunteers are searching for Rebecca in Manistee National Forest. They have flashlights, boots, hope. I think the entire community had hope. I think the entire state of Michigan had hope that we were going to find Rebecca and that baby. But obviously at that point, nobody had any idea that Rebecca was gone, because while they were like trying to find her alive, the people accused of killing her were probably already on TikTok talking about literally nothing relevant. It's tragic, it's heartbreaking, and it's frankly enraging. So November 25th, when the body is found, a volunteer finally finds Rebecca's body deep in the woods, and this is where the facade collapses. Once law enforcement has the body, the timeline snaps into focus like a high-definition horror movie. So the arrest and the charges. The entire family is questioned at this point. Courtney and Bradley are arrested, and the charges are reading off like a never get out of prison checklist. They are charged with first-degree murder, felony murder, torture, conspiracy to commit torture, unlawful imprisonment, assault causing miscarriage slash stillbirth, removal and concealment of a dead body, and concealing the death of an individual. Plus a few, I'm sure prosecutors just like threw in there just out of like frustration, like, hey, let's add tax evasion too, just because. This whole story has been just really disturbing and just like the way it unfolded. It's again like worst criminals in history, and I guess I still don't understand the motive, and this is why it has like completely shooketh the internet. People aren't just like horrified, they're enraged, they're confused, and they're emotionally exhausted by this. The fake pregnancy narrative, the mother killing her daughter, the baby allegedly extracted with surgical tools and dental floss, a lunchbox used as a body disposal method, trash bags, digital evidence that like destroyed every timeline slash lie that they came up with, the witness statements that didn't match, the phone pings that obviously don't lie, and, the audacity. Courtney and Bradley are probably the worst people on the face of the planet. And then most of all, the sheer just cruelty of the entire situation. This is like the saddest outcome. And it sucks because I feel like everyone had so much hope that Rebecca and her baby would be found. And, once Rebecca was found and the baby was missing, I think we all had hope that at least the baby would have been alive. At this point, it just really disturbs me to think that such evil exists in this world. And it really makes me sad. Rebecca didn't deserve any of this at all. Not the violence, not the betrayal, not the disappearance, not the cruelty, and certainly not to be left alone in the woods like garbage. If you are listening and you have people in your life who care about you, call them, tell them you love them, reach out, because there's no undo button in cases like this. And to Courtney and Bradley, if hell has a waiting room, you're first in line. All right, guys, take a breath with me. If this episode left you feeling heavy, angry, heartbroken, or staring at the wall in silence, that reaction completely makes sense. These weren't just stories, these were lives, real people, real families, real harm. Michelle Newton lost 40 years that she'll never be able to get back, and Rebecca Park literally lost everything at the hands of the person who should have been protecting her most. And if there is one thing I want you to walk away with today, it's this. Truth has a way of always resurfacing. DNA does not lie. Phones don't forget. And time doesn't erase responsibility. If you see a situation and something in your gut feels off about a situation in your own life, trust that instinct. Say something, ask questions, reach out. Silence is where harm thrives. Please be gentle with yourself, guys. Drink some water, hug someone you love, step outside if you need air. And if this episode brought up anything for you, you don't have to carry it alone. Thank you so much for trusting me with stories this heavy. Thank you for listening with empathy. And thank you for showing up to conversations that aren't easy, but do matter. This has been mostly accurate. I don't think I'm going to follow with a personal story today. So I will see you guys next time. Make sure to follow, rate, like. Yeah, let's keep hanging out. All right. Okay. Love you. Bye. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The facts are fuzzy. Our stories and opinions are just that, stories and opinions, not meant to be taken as professional advice.